last time, for other people, other friends, the last time we saw Kevin was when we were in Sri Lanka with Ajahn, and Kevin arranged the discussions in Colombo. And before that, we've met him in discussions in Vietnam. So very glad that you've managed to join, Kevin. Good.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for letting me in today. It's been a while. So glad to see all the great faces. Hi, Jonathan.
Hi, Kevin. How are you? Nice to see you again.
I'm great.
Where are you joining us from?
I'm from my home in Ho Chi Minh in Thailand.
Okay, good. Right.
I remember meeting you in Sri Lanka as well, Kevin. And nice to see you.
Thank you so much. I didn't know about the schedule until recently.
Well, it's really wonderful that these discussions happen on Zoom. It's wonderful for everyone.
Yeah, it was so good. Yeah.
Very generous of Ajahn.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sawadee
Ajahn, I'd like to just mention that Kevin is here, who you met last time in Sri Lanka in the discussions in Colombo. He arranged the discussions that we had there. And before that, you met him in Vietnam. So we're glad that he's joining us today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you taught me a lot, Ajahn, publicly and privately. So I got too much from you. Are you well at the age of 90?
We can't hear you, Ajahn.
Not hear me. Sorry. I didn't turn on the mic. Yeah, I'm now 95 and I'm going to be 96 soon.
Yeah, it's been 10 years. Time flies.
Is it 10 years since we were in Sri Lanka? Quite a long time. You lived there for quite a few years. Is that right, Kevin? Yes.
Yeah, I did my Buddhist studies there. And now I'm settled in my home and just leading a normal life.
And how about the understanding of the Sri Lanka now about the Dhamma?
Oh, really bad. I heard lots of sad news from my friends and from the monks and from people I know. So I try to help them in any ways I can. All I could do was just donating some money, but I didn't know what else I could help them.
Try one's best, that's all.
Really sad.
I think Ajahn was asking about the understanding of the Dhamma amongst the friends or the people you know in Sri Lanka.
Oh, well, it's hard to say. Yeah, I can only say about the understanding of the Dhamma that happened in me, and it's difficult to say about others. Yeah.
I think that they just would like to know what Buddha said, but not to understand what is there. Otherwise, how can he understand the teachings of the Buddha and how great wisdom he had? So most people think that in this life, they try so hard to get something like Nibbana or experience the object as not self. But in truth, it's not like that at all. It's just the moment of hearing something for thinking about whether it's right or wrong, not believe suddenly, instantly when the word Buddha is said. But it's not like that. Just whatever is heard. It's quite new in life because it's just all about that which is now and who knows now. because usually they just go forward to other things instantly, thinking about what is experienced as something all the time. So I think that it's not just talking about the teachings of the Buddha, but what is there? Just a very, very simple talk at ease. That's why just learn to understand the truth. That's all. By then, on and on, the person can understand the teachings of the Buddha and his great virtues. So the point is not try to help the other to understand the teaching of the Buddha, but to understand what is there now. Very interesting because it's there. So listen to the other's idea, what they do think about it. Is it important or not important this very moment? Otherwise, it's just cannot get to the teachings as the truth at all. So now we're talking about what is there to understand what is there a little more, because it's so very subtle. As subtle as no one knows what is there.
We had a lot of discussions before, Kevin, about different practices and meditations versus just understanding reality now, what appears now, which Ajahn is just talking about, understanding what is there now. What is your understanding these days? Do you still have idea of following a practice or a meditation, or what about the understanding of the reality at this moment? What do you think these days?
Well, I actually try to follow the instructions from Ajahn and nearly didn't specifically practice meditation, like sitting in a room and in a quiet place and close my eyes. But in reality, I feel that I'm losing a bit confidence because many other things just suddenly pull me into the hesitation, into the chaotic realities of life. And I don't know why it just happens that we are here today, right at the point that I'm really considering to get back to serious meditation practice, because I feel without the discipline and without the actual devoted time, I'm slipping away from being aware, being mindful of the present moment. And I have few questions, so but since you asked first, I just shared briefly.
Thank you for sharing. It's good to know what your thinking is and what the concerns are. And I think that what you say is very common. People have a kind of fear or anxiety that if they don't have some kind of method or a practice, that somehow there will just be too much akusala and that there won't be any awareness. And usually there's not enough confidence that dhammas are anatta and that really there is no one who can do anything, because the deep-rooted idea that I should do something or I should make this situation more manageable or I should be calmer is so very deeply rooted. And we think about the different situations forgetting about actually just each reality as it is at this moment.
And also, Kevin, I think people have the idea that if they are truly following the Buddha's path, life will not be as chaotic and have as many ups and downs as it otherwise would. But we can ask whether this is really the case. Is the development of the path just about having more kusala, more calmness in one's daily life? Or is it about having a better understanding of the nature of that life? Because these are different things. The development of calm in daily life can be achieved without having heard the Buddha's teaching. But the understanding of the nature of the moments of that life is unique to the teaching of the Buddha. And that is the essence of the teaching. And so it is no real gauge of one's place on the path to say that there's less chaos in life, or that because it's normal and natural. The chaos in one's life is a result of one's accumulated akusala. And so we all have lots of chaos in daily life, lots of akusala, ups and downs. But through that, despite that, there can still be the development of understanding of the nature of the moment, whether that be nama or rupa. But gradually over time, one can come to see the conditioned nature of things, which of course explains why life is not as calm and smooth as we would like it to be. So it's a little bit of a trap to just be in search of the calmness in one's life. That is not going to help the development of the path, I feel. And I'm sure John will.
I think that it's not the matter to think about the others, because the reality is so subtle that there is no understanding of anything at all. That is the subtlety of reality. That's why it has to be very subtle from the very beginning to understand the point of life, or what are we now for, to understand the truth. See, we don't use any name or any word, but there can be the beginning of what is there now? What is it? Just one question. If anyone would like to understand what is now, he can understand, or they can understand whatever, because life exists only in a moment, just a moment, a moment, a moment to be known. Otherwise, it's not known at all from birth to death. Years and years ago, no understanding of what is there. So beginning to think, to consider, is it very important, this moment, to understand? Otherwise, no understanding of anything in life at all as it is. Because what is now appearing is there to be studied, to answer what is, see? Otherwise, what is the truth? This moment is the truth, but the truth is that which is not known until what is there begin to understand this moment as it is. Otherwise, we just talk about everything, and people have their own accumulation to think about this and that all the time, but we don't mind about the others, to be truthful to oneself, to the truth. What is there now? This is the beginning to understand the truth that Buddha has enlightened, and he's the one who taught about the truth. That's why we begin to hear about what is there now. Buddha didn't ask the other, what is there now? But he asked, is seeing permanent? Is hearing permanent? Just seeing there, hearing there, see? That's why before there can be any understanding of whatever appears, it has to be right now, to be the fruit of considering the truth. What is that? See? Because all the words of the Buddha taught about what is there now. But we think that we try to understand the word like khanda and ayatana and so on. What is now? Is what he taught about. Khanda, ayatana, and so on. So it has to begin to be truthful to understand what is there. Otherwise, the teachings of the Buddha is needless. No one is interested in understanding the truth of what is there now. Because it's so subtle that even it's there, what is the answer? What is there? If it's easy, it can be answered. But what is there now? Beginning from ignorance, and then there can be a little more understanding of the truth of what is there now. And by then, no doubt about the enlightenment of the Buddha. So very subtle, because even it's now appearing, it's not known as it is. It does not appear as it is at all. See? When they say, why not? There can be the answer about what is there little by little to understand the truth of what is there now. So I think that it's not easy at all to have right start from the very beginning to understand the purpose of hearing about. We don't have to hear about the difficult words, no understanding what is practice what, why sit and know nothing. So just practice to know nothing and so on. To be truthful, what is that now? Is it not interesting to understand? Because it's only that which is there. So changing from moment to moment, unknown. It can be known when there is the understanding of one reality. That at this moment there are many realities when there is the understanding of the one, different ones, one by one. So what is there now? That is the answer of the understanding of the teaching of the Buddha. Otherwise, it's not the teaching of the truth, of the enlightened Buddha. Can it be known? Because it's there now. What is the use of understanding it? Life is in a moment, at that very moment, from moment to moment. The problem is there, the answer is there, happiness is there, everything is there in a moment. So when there's no understanding of what is there, it's impossible to understand the truth of each moment. So we can talk about is there now, what is this moment, to begin to understand the truth in life. From life to life, eons and eons ago, what is this of moment? Otherwise, it just talk about what's in the book. What is there now is not known. That the words in the book represent what is there now to be known as it is.
You mentioned you have some questions, Kevin. Would you like to raise them?
Yes. My first question is, what is the difference between the process of hearing and seeing without awareness and understanding to the normal process of the untrained person?
The seeing, the hearing, the processes of cittas are exactly the same, no matter whether there's understanding or no understanding, no matter whether it's the seeing of the Buddha or the seeing of the cat, it's just seeing. The hearing is just seeing. The hearing is just hearing, no matter there's ignorance or no ignorance. So the aim is not to change the realities arising now, not to change life as it is, but to understand it just as it is. So seeing is always seeing. It doesn't change, but gradually there can be a little more understanding that this is life at this moment. Seeing, which arises by conditions, experiences what is visible, falls away instantly. No one there that sees. And this is the truth, even if the Buddha never taught anything about realities. It's still the truth that seeing is just a Dhamma, just a reality that experiences what is visible and then is gone. You mentioned that you try to follow the instructions from Ajahn, but it's not a matter of following any instructions because there's no one there that can follow. If there is the idea of I try to do or I try to be aware as I am taught, that is the story of I. It's not the understanding of seeing now as just a reality. So it's not a matter of trying to be aware, but just by hearing and considering and reflecting a little more about what life is at this moment, what is there now, the understanding can begin to develop, begin to understand that these realities are anatta, no one there to do anything, to follow instructions or be aware at all.
And Kevin, just to add a little to what Sarah said in answer to your question, what is also the same is that the moments of seeing and hearing are followed by many mind-all moments which think about or process the rupa, the object that has been experienced through the sense doors. And this is so for the enlightened being as it is for the worldling. And so there's a lot of thinking, there's conceptualizing of the seen and the heard in terms of people and things. And that is the case for the enlightened being also. What is different is the underlying understanding or view as to the significance of things, as to what is real, what is conceptual, as to whether the objects that are conceived of exist in some sense or not. Because in the Buddha's teaching, it's only the conditioned realities that have existence. And this fact has been seen by the enlightened being, and so there's no underlying idea of substantial existence outside of realities. But there is still, for the enlightened being, thinking in terms of people and things, but no mistaking that for reality. So what is difference is the level of understanding.
I was just going to say, Kevin, and Jonathan has really alluded to it. The really big difference is that the process is with the unenlightened person, is is the experience of people and things, which is not true. The experience of people and things or somebody or some places, that is not true. That's not according to Dhamma. Jonathan has touched on this point. So that's the big difference between the untrained mind and the trained mind, who understands reality as it is, not how the untrained person thinks it is. There's an enormous difference. One is an enlightened perspective, the other one is not. And it takes careful consideration to view Dhamma as it is. But I would love, Tana Jan Cup, I'd love you to speak to that question. What's the big difference, would you say, Cup, between how the unenlightened person experiences the world and how the enlightened person experiences the world?
Shall we talk just about one word at a time? Now, what is process? See, if there's no understanding of the process, how can there be the understanding more about the doubt of this and that? But only the word process, what is it?
It's a good question, Tanajan. Would you would you elaborate on that?
It's time to think about the truth. When we use any word, it seems like we understand, but in truth, no understanding of what we are saying from birth to death at all. Even the processing. What is it? If there is nothing at all in the world, can there be process? So what is it? If there's nothing, can there be process? So what is process? It's not the process of a tree from when it's just very small and then grow up. It's not like that at all. So what is it? See, this is a beginning to understand. Just one word like Dhamma or Nama or Rupa or seeing or hearing or process. Otherwise, it's only thinking like we understand it, but in truth, not understanding what is there now as it is here. So very close, the process here. See, so what is process? Because we have learned about Citta, Cetasika, Rupa, Nibbana, and so on. So what is process? This is the beginning to understand what is meant by process, the truth of life. But what is it? Kevin, this is the question.
May I attempt to answer? Thank you. I don't know, but I can just answer according to the books and a little bit of my observation, my own experience. So according to the book, the process is the the cognition of objects, as Jonathan explained, the rupa, and then there is the the realizing, the cognizing that the mind, the seeing mind or consciousness appears, and then that process just happens because of it is conditioned that way, and the untrained person conceptualize what he sees as persons, as things, but the enlightened persons also conceptualize like that to be convenient to lead his life, but the underlying understanding that it's just mere process without the involvement of a self or any intention, any efforts, whether the Buddha teaching is understood or not, the realities are there. So that is the book. But my own experience is I do use the word that you don't like, some techniques to pay attention to the present moment. For example, paying attention to touching points between my body and the ground and the seat, paying attention to the process of the sound coming through my ear, and then the thought that follows, the intention, the feeling that that comes out with the information that I've heard. The same as tasting, the same as smelling. So I just kept practicing like that. So I'm not sure if that is the right way to understand the Dhamma.
Ajahn, we cannot hear you.
Sorry again. Yeah, but there are many questions having heard you talk about what you have learned. But shall we talk about just one word to know whether it's a reality, and the understanding can be clearer and clearer as what is meant by a reality. See, otherwise we follow the book and think that it's by the book we can understand this and that. But each word in the book talk about the reality right now. For example, what is there in the book? Seeing, and they're seeing right now. Hearing is there right now. Even process, it's now too. But no understanding of this moment. So how can there be the understanding of the words in the teaching just about life, each moment, now too? So again, please consider what is meant by process. Is there any reality? Just one word, process. Is it a reality?
Yeah, it is.
So what is it?
The rupa arise and the consciousness arise according to conditions.
What is rupa?
The material, like color and smell and hardness, softness, etc.
So what do you mean by the process of rupa?
With arising and falling away.
No process of rupa. It grows, but it's not by process. What we mean by process.
My understanding here is the cognizing process. As the rupa arises, then the mind and also arise to cognize the material.
But what is the truth? By Utu, temperature, it grows or it dies. We use that word when it's not there. But in truth, can arupa experience an object in a process? Otherwise, that is not the understanding of rupa. We think that rupa is the process of growing. It's not like that at all. Because even it grows when there's no reality which experiences, who knows, the growth rate. Nothing can be known at all when there's no reality which can experience an object, like seeing sees, hearing hears. So what is meant by process? This is the beginning to understand this moment not in the book, but the book just talk about seeing right now. And when there's the term process, what does it mean? Seeing does not arise alone. What and then gone, and no other chitta or that which experiences. See, it has to begin to understand the word in the book that it's all about now. At moment of birth, can that be seeing right then as the birth moment?
Yes.
And a moment of birth consciousness, rising and falling away. Can that be a moment of seeing right then after the moment of birth? See, this is the understanding of the truth, absolute truth. We are learning to understand this moment, how come to be seeing, hearing, thinking, and so on. There must be the first moment of life, moment of birth. And what is it? What is birth? See, this is in the book, all about the truth of each moment, but it has to begin with subtle understanding. What is said in the book is to explain what is there in life to be understood of the truth of life, of reality, what is meant by enlightenment and absolute truth. What followed the birth consciousness instantly when the birth consciousness is gone. See, before there can be the understanding of what is meant by process.
I think, Kevin, actually you've read and studied these details, but the wording may be unfamiliar. So the birth consciousness and the Bhavanga chittas that follow it, these are chittas which are process freed. They're not piti chittas. So in life, there are the Bhavanga chittas following the birth consciousness continuously until they're interrupted by a process of chittas. The first process in life is a process through the mind door. And throughout life, the Bhavanga chittas, which are not process chittas, are interrupted by sense door processes, such as an eye door process of chittas, followed by more Bhavanga chittas, which are process freed, and then a process of mind door chittas. So, for example, when sound is the object of a process of chittas, first there has to be the adverting consciousness, which experiences the sound, followed by the hearing consciousness, which experiences the sound, two more vipaka chittas, akiriya chitta, and then kusala or akusala chittas, which all experience the sound before it falls away. These are the chittas which are the viti chittas, the process of the ear door chittas. And when each of these chittas arises, it has to be accompanied by at least 7 cetasikas, as you know. And one of those cetasikas that arises with every chitta is manasikara, which attends to the object at each moment. So we have the idea of paying attention to the sound or being aware of the sound. But we don't realize that actually there is attention at each moment by conditions. No one can decide now what sound there will be attention to, because the hearing has already arisen. The other citas in the process have already arisen. Each one has fallen away. Each one is accompanied by Manasikara and the other cetasikas, the Passa, the Ekagata, which focuses on that object, fallen away. So by the time there is any idea of attending to sound, it's long gone. It's just a fantasy that I can attend to it because it was conditioned to rise and gone. So the point of talking about the realities and understanding what is process, what is citta, what is manasikara, what are the other realities, is to help understand that there is no one there that can do anything. So when there is the idea that I can practice, I can attend to sound, or I can be aware of what is appearing now, it's the fantasy. It's a fantasy that I can do something. And you mentioned before about losing confidence. This is because of trying to follow instructions, trying to be aware, when actually it's impossible because no I to do anything. So of course there will be disappointment. Of course there will be lack of confidence. Of course there will be doubt. And of course there will be chaos as usual in life, because it's not the understanding of just what appears now as it is naturally by conditions. It's the idea that I can do something, I can practice, I can somehow make awareness arise by following a technique. So this is the reason that we discuss about one reality at a time and consider what is there right now in order to understand no I that can do anything at all. What do you think, Kevin?
On the other hand,
Makes sense in theory, I know, but sometimes the theory seems, because you've studied the details, you've studied Abhidhamma, you've studied Pali a lot, so you know the details in theory, but then it seems that there is lack of confidence, or it seems that life is not going smoothly, or it seems that it's too chaotic, not like when you were dressed in robes or living in the temple. But this is daily life now. The disturbance now, the attachment now, the lack of confidence. So it takes a lot of courage for understanding to understand just what appears at this moment, not what we would like to appear at this moment. But this is the path of understanding, the path of detachment from what appears at this moment, seeing, hearing, annoyance, boredom, liking, pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling. Otherwise, it's always I trying to find the calm, trying to get away from the chaos, trying to be aware. So this is the point of understanding what is process at this very moment.
Wow, you mentioned Manasikara. I think it's a really important aspect to discuss. In theory, yes, there's always attention there. But you have to agree with me that everything that comes as a habit will be natural. Just like when we start driving a car, we will lose all the confidence. But once you drive for a few years, you just naturally do the things that necessary. So the same thing as attention. If somebody pays great attention to let's say the reality is happening at the present moment, you can say forcefully or unnaturally, but that will become a momentum that you can let go of that force and effort, unnatural effort, and becomes a momentum, and naturally one will pay attention to their experience at the present moment. And I think it's not theory, it just comes from my own experience, and many others, I'm sure they will have the same experience.
I think the question, Kevin, is when there is that kind of paying attention that you're referring to, what is it, the object of the attention?
Whatever
Because,
object that one can cognize at the present moment,
yes,
whether it's saying it's the light, the sound, the touching point.
But can conditioned realities be the object of that kind of attention, or can they only be known by Panya?
I'm not sure whether one has Panya or not. If he unnaturally force himself to pay attention to the objects, I totally agree with you. The idea of I is a kusala and trying to cognize something, but the cognition is still there. Where the attention is unwholesome, the natural process is still there, but one just doesn't understand deeply enough. But if he keeps doing that unnaturally, and then he can get rid of the one day, or I don't know how, get rid of the idea of I when the moment comes. But
the object of the cognition,
whatever, whatever
yes,
naturally.
But no, it's important to appreciate whether the object of that cognition can be a reality, a conditioned reality, or whether it can only be the idea of a conditioned reality.
Let's say I'm feeling the coldness of the drink that I had just had a sip. Would I have the habit of drinking slowly and feeling the coffee going through the throat, and the temperature in different parts of the body, and then the joyful feeling that comes with it. I'm not sure I can recognize it instantly with Panya, but at least I have pretty clear understanding of that whole process, and sometimes I don't have to put any effort. I don't have to have an idea of myself watching that process. It's just naturally appreciation of the experience. So I think it's a part of the reality there. I'm not sure how deep it is, but it is.
When a reality, a conditioned reality, appears to Panya, to my understanding, that is quite different from any kind of paying attention that you've just described, because anyone can pay attention, as you've mentioned, to, say, the drinking process, drinking a coffee. The question is whether that is anything to do with the understanding that the Buddha spoke about when he said that conditioned realities are to be fully understood. Was he referring to just that kind of following the conventional idea of what is there at the present moment, or was he speaking about understanding something that is not apparent at all, unless Panya arises? And it seems to me that the reality that is, say, temperature, which is one of the things you mentioned in describing the drinking process, the reality of temperature is, when it is the object of awareness and understanding, is a totally different thing from our idea of temperature as we are consuming a drink.
Kevin, if I may add, listening to you, there are a number of insidious traps that I think are very easy to fall into. And I think we can easily think we understand. And of course, you may say to us, well, how do you know you understand? Well, that's a good question. But I think listening to you, it's so easy to mishear what the other is saying because of your accumulations, your tendencies, you have ways of thinking in other ways, which you think is the way, which you have just described, and which Jonathan has tried to talk to you about, that may not be particularly helpful. So there are a lot of traps that I hear when I listen to you. It's about really, and once we have established a pathway of thought about what we conceive the Dhamma to be, you just can't flip over and say, oh yeah, I hear what you guys are saying. You cannot do that. So it's a very difficult situation that I think people can get into by thinking that they understand when in actual fact they may not. I don't know if I can say much more than that, but that's what I hear when I listen to you.
And I think,
may I elaborate a bit?
Yes, certainly.
I think that I've heard Dhamma discussions many times. I've read the books and I listened to the tapes. So I'm familiar with Ajah's instructions and our discussion. So what I explained.
Well, you may be, sorry, Kevin, if I can jump in there, you may be familiar with them. I believe I met you in Vietnam. I think you live in Taiwan from last memory, but you may be familiar with them, but do you understand them?
Yeah, let me finish.
Okay, certainly. Okay, go ahead.
So the Dhamma discussions are for everybody. And since I can consider myself as the old student of Ajahn, I ask the questions deeply from my heart to share my issues in my ways of explaining. I'm here to learn. Language-wise, probably because I did some Buddhist studies, so I use some of the terms, and I always say that I try to say it from the book, and sometimes that I say that this is my own experience. So if I cannot explain myself well, many other people would not be able to explain themselves because you know, I've been following these discussions for a long time. So what I'm trying to say is, please try to understand the newcomers' terms and issues in their own context, and I think that the Dhamma discussions will be very helpful to many others. That's all I can say. I'm not unhappy at all. I'm very happy because I can hear different points, different aspects. Whether you understand my point or you think that I don't understand your points, that's not important. By flipping the subjects in different ways, one can have better understanding. That's all I would like to share.
And I think it'd be good if Ajahn could add some comments at this point. Thank you.
So I think that no matter how long we have heard the teachings, but all about now, Buddha didn't teach anything else, just what is there at each moment. But it's so subtle Do not forget the certainty of reality, which took long time for Buddha to become enlightened. So now we listen to the certainty of each reality because it's real. It's a reality. Beginning from Dhamma, it means whatever is there, it's real. So Dhamma is a reality. It is so different from the other because each one has its own characteristic. So to pay respect to the Buddha of his great wisdom, his great purity, and his great compassion for everyone to begin to understand the truth, to enroot the understanding that what is there can be understood, but it's so very subtle, so carefully be steadfast, firm confidence of the truth in order to realize the truth, which is now appearing not as it is. And right understanding only can understand it clearly. That's why I begin to think about what question, because we now just begin to talk about Dhamma at ease, understand what is said. So now, what is birth? Very simple, but it shows the understanding of each one at moment of answer this question. So, would you like to talk about birth? Birth is the moment of birth. Beginning. See, is there a moment of birth for each one now? If about birth. Anyone, please.
We can talk about two kinds of birth. We can talk about birth as the first citta in life, the patisandhi citta that follows the last moment, the death consciousness in the last life. But in a deeper sense, we can say there is birth at each moment, because each citta in life, each moment of seeing, each moment of hearing, each moment of thinking, each moment of consciousness arises and falls away, gone, never to be returned. So there is birth and death at each moment, because each citta arises and falls away. So we may think about attending to what is seen or what is heard, but the cittas arise and fall away in such rapid succession, so that by the time there's any idea of attending to anything, it's long since gone. It's just thinking about what has been seen, thinking about what has been heard. So birth is at this moment of seeing, this moment of hearing, this moment of thinking, and then death at each moment. And this is sunyata, the falling away of each reality instantly. No one there to be found at all. No one who can pay attention. No one who can cognize. And we may think that in the beginning there has to be the unnatural force and effort, or there has to be the idea that I can cognize, and you appreciate that this is the wrong understanding. So I think the Buddha never taught follow the wrong path of wrong understanding and then it will turn into the right path. There has to be the understanding from the beginning that now citta is born and dies and is gone. Hearing arises and is gone. No one there at all. And this is life from moment to moment. No one who can cognize, no one who can do anything. So this is why we study about the reality of life at this moment, birth at this moment, death at this moment.
For those who
never to return again.
As they learned, but from the very beginning, not hearing anything at all, it has to be that person's own understanding to find out the meaning of the word that we use from birth, but how much understanding about the truth of it, or what is there. For example, birth. For those who haven't heard about the teaching at all, just think about birth as what? The beginning of life, is that right? No understanding of anything yet. As much as one knows what is meant by birth is the beginning of life. So it's not the birth of a tree or what, the mountain, but it's the birth of life, the first moment in life. We don't talk about how come to be that moment yet, because it's so very subtle. Just begin to understand what is there at birth, to understand what we are talking about. Otherwise, it's just a word in the book. But what is there at moment of birth? See, to understand from birth to death, what are there in life, from life to life, unknown. But to begin to understand, there must be a reality which arises. A reality, because birth is a reality, moment of birth. So there must be the reality of birth. It's a reality which experiences an object. But from at moment of birth, who knows what birth experience? Not at all. Even moment after it. Because if birth does not fall away, can there be this moment? Impossible. That's why birth is a moment of the reality which experience an object at that moment, different from the tree, grows, and so on, because there is a reality which experiences an object. But we don't know that it's a reality. We just know that it's moment of birth. That's why Buddha developed his understanding, how long to understand everything, each moment, absolute truth. No name, no word. We don't have to call it chitta or anything at all. But there must be a reality which arises to experience an object. Otherwise, it's not birth. But we don't know yet about how many conditions for its arising and so on. Just a moment of birth, the beginning of life. But life keeps on going unknowingly. What are there from moments to moments? So very rapidly, is this true? Beginning to be truthful to the truth, to understand just one word from the Buddha, because it's so very subtle, each word. Otherwise, no way to understand how Buddha enlightened the truth much more than the other can expect or imagine at all. So even that moment has, it means that whatever arises falls away. Otherwise, there cannot be other moment on and on and on, different moment from moment of birth. See, this is not a process yet. Begin to understand what is meant by a process. It has to understand the moment of birth. So what follows? Usually, people have the idea there must be karma, and there must be the result. And in fact, the result of karma is vipaka. So we cannot choose moment of birth to be such and such at all. No one can condition birth at will because it's there already by condition. And that's a moment. The first moment must be the first, never be the second or the third. The first is the first. And there must be a second moment, because first is not always there. Each reality arises by conditions for it to arise. As it has conditioned that reality to arise, it finishes its task. So that it falls away. Whatever is conditioned to arise falls away instantly. But who knows? The reality which experiences the object has its own condition for itself to condition the next moment to arise. Like, who knows, previous moment and this moment by conditions, which this moment of experiencing an object after it has fallen away, it conditioned the next moment instantly, begin to understand the way it is. Because each one knows there must be birth, and they live on and on until death. But not understanding, no understanding what is there at all. That's why, for those who know that they do not know whatever is there in life, from birth to death, and then gone completely, what's all the property, knowledge, and everything in this life, not there anymore after it's gone at moment of birth. See, that's why learning to see what is the best thing is to understand the truth, or just live without any understanding of the truth, that after life there must be a moment of birth again, because the reality which arises and falls away condition the next moment. As long as there are conditions, there must be that which is conditioned to arise. And this is the beginning before understanding what is meant by process, to understand what is there now. And even right now, this moment, so short, it sees and then gone. So it just arises to see, only to see, finish, gone, because it sees already. This is the way it is. Whatever arises falls away. Consider this, to have confidence of the truth. Nothing is permanent at all. Even thinking, liking, talk, whatever. See? And it can continue on, understanding from that moment on and on, little by little, to understand the way it is as life until death. So each word should be understood and should be understood clearly. Otherwise, they are mixed up with many words and try to collect them together and try to have the idea of it. But what is the truth right now at this moment? We're talking about the moment of experiencing an object. There is something seen. What does it mean? There must be a reality which sees it. Otherwise, how can it be seen? So it's now this moment of seeing. So the question is, can seeing see after the moment of birth? In Pali, patisanti citta. Also, what is the one? Can it be seeing? To understand what is meant by process, just one word. And this is a strategy of what is now hidden. Because with this process, on a process, it's only the word in memory, only that. But when there's understanding of the truth, there can be understanding what moment is in a process and what is not, by conditions, to learn the absolute truth, which is hidden so very deeply, so very subtle. Everything is so true of each reality that nobody can change at all. Just arise and fall away instantly. Who can change? Who can do anything? So without understanding the truth of what is there, it's right. Is it right to go to somewhere and to try to do something? For what? No understanding of what is there now. So is that the teaching of the enlightenment for the other to develop understanding of the truth? So in life, it depends on interest to understanding the truth, to understand the truth, or just live as all until die without any understanding. And what the understanding is a reality, and the ignorance is also a reality too. Is it real? Not understanding what is there now. So beginning to study what is there in the teachings in book, because it's all about this moment. So we can understand the process. There has to be the understanding from the very beginning what is there and what is meant by process. Otherwise, it's only just thinking about words. So, Kevin, what do you think about this?
Yeah. It's always feels really enlightening when we hear these things. However, I'm wondering, at the point of akusala happens in life, we and the point of hearing all the beautiful teaching are different. So is there any continuation, any accumulation that that helps us to understand better when at the point that akusala happens, that we forget all the teaching? What is the guarantee that if we keep hearing the Dhamma, and when we have to deal with the the difficult realities, we can use that knowledge to have a right understanding at the present moment?
What did Buddha say as soon as he had enlightened?
Sorry?
His enlightenment. What's the word from his enlightenment about?
Oh,
Dhamma.
What did the Buddha say is?
Enlightenment is the full understanding of realities as it is.
Ajahn question was what the Buddha said.
Enlightenment, what did he say?
Understanding the path.
He said, all dhammas are so very subtle. If it's not as subtle, why did he just develop parami? Just in order to enlighten the truth. And after his enlightenment, he said, all dhammas are so very subtle. What is meant as the subtlety of Dhamma? He taught for 45 years. And what are you hearing now? Conform with what is said in the Tipitaka. Each word, the first moment of life, whatever arises is not permanent. Dukkham, anicca, anatta. Whatever is anicca is not dukkha because it's just for a very short moment and then gone. Why do we crave for it? It's gone already. And no one can condition anything at all. No one can make or do anything. Anatta, all dhammas which arises, sankhara dhamma, must be anicca, dukkha, anatta. And all dhammas include everything, anatta. See, so now we are now talking about each reality as its anatta. It's conditioned to arise, just to arise and then gone, anicca, dukkha, anatta. So each word should be understood carefully. What is your first word? A moment ago about forget.
I think you said that akusala keeps arising, and this is true because it's so deeply rooted and not eradicated. And you asked what is the guarantee that we can use this knowledge. But the truth is, as Ajahn was just stressing, that all dhammas are anatta. Panya is anatta. No one there that can use anything or do anything. And at the beginning, you mentioned about slipping away from being aware of the present moment. But awareness also, it just arises for a moment and falls away. So no one can make awareness last. It cannot last. Nothing lasts at all. And the real problem in life is the strong clinging, the clinging with ignorance to being aware, to just having kusala, to being kind people, to not having akusala. And this strong clinging hinders the development of understanding. As you mentioned, it's unnatural. It's not the right understanding when there's the idea of making an effort, trying to stop akusala arising, focusing on an object, because the clinging is not understood at all at those moments.
And if I could just add briefly, Kevin, when the understanding of the Buddha's teaching is in terms of a better understanding of what is real at the present moment, there is no longer the concern of having to deal with akusala as it arises, or chaos in one's life, because understanding, the object of understanding is any reality that's appearing, whatever the moment, good times, bad times, calm, chaos, etc. And it's quite a different approach or mind state, if you like, from the idea of akusala being something that needs to be somehow dealt with when it arises, because it disturbs our preferred routine. And this is also relevant to the understanding that Ajahn was talking about of dhammas as being conditioned and not self. So when awareness and understanding does arise, it will take an object, not the object of our choosing, not what we think needs to be better understood or reduced or increased at the present moment, but whatever object is conditioned to take, because any moment of understanding of the true nature of realities helps to reduce our wrong view of the world, of which there is a lot, of course, for all of us.
And just if I may add there a little bit on the other side, and I heard this being spoken to earlier on, this aspect of chaos. Well, even when there's not what some people say, there's not chaos in my life, everything is really good, my meditation or whatever is going really well, that doesn't have to be any indication at all, because they say there is no chaos and everything is going well or whatever, or anything else in between. That is, of course, no indication that there's any understanding. Words by themselves, you cannot, they help to convey the Dhamma, but when we listen to people talk about Dhamma, and I appreciate what Jonathan was alluding to before about conditioned Dhammas. When there is the beginning, at least at the beginning, or any stage, excuse me, when we can begin to appreciate that is the nature of reality. And it's not a matter of doing this or doing that. It's a matter of really considering carefully what conditioned Dhamma, the concept, the idea of that, what does it really mean? That will be helpful when we start to consider that. It's not, that is not, well, there's not a sense of, well, I understand now because nature, we can say that word conditioned Dhammas, but it doesn't mean necessarily anything until it's considered in a way like you're looking at it from, you triangulate, you're looking at it from many different aspects. What is the full implications of that? How can that understanding of conditioned Dhammas be applied in life? And that's not an easy question to ask, especially when we've got other accumulations and other tendencies that point in the other direction. As I alluded to before, you can't just flip over and think, oh yeah, got it now. What you guys make sense. And we don't, and we never, and Tanajan or the Buddha would never expect that. He knew that could not happen. The Dhamma is about considering so very, very carefully what Tanajan alluded to before when he thought about teaching the Dhamma, because it's so subtle. He considered that very carefully before he taught, and before Brahma Sahampati invited him to teach the Dhamma, because there are some people with little dust in their eyes. They will understand this teaching. And we so easily get caught up with practices and doing this or doing that, or thinking we understand. And I'm not talking to you, please, I don't mean this, Kevin, directly, but something I hear so much from some of my very close friends, and I feel sad about that. That is my accumulation to think like that. But I have learning to appreciate that people are the way they are because of their accumulated tendencies. And as much as I want them to be different, that's not going to happen. So that is part of what I believe Tanajan, via the Buddha's teachings, has passed on to me, and I suspect many other people who are listening today. It's difficult. And I don't, it's Dhamma is very difficult, but it's the most wonderful thing if you can attend to it. It's the greatest blessing. However, then again, that cannot be conveyed in words. Look, I wish you well in the Dhamma, Kevin. I truly do, and I hope things work out well for you. And I just encourage you to be really committed to truth, not how you specifically think it is, but how it is.
And I think, Betty, you were trying to speak earlier. Oh, sorry, Ajahn. I was just mentioning, I think Betty was trying to speak earlier too.
Yes, Ajahn put it far more beautifully than I could, so I turned off the unraised the hand. But I would like to say that this has been, for me, in the last few days, such an important period of my life to better understand anatta, anicca, and dukkha. And this is what has helped me to have peace after the death of my husband last Thursday. And when I listen to you, I listen to Ajahn, and I listen to everyone who's here, it becomes clearer and clearer to me. And I'm just so grateful to be able to listen right now.
I'm glad you could join us today, Betty.
Thank you.
Betty, yes, and I am, and I'm sure everyone here, very sorry to hear the loss of your husband.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed, Mom Betty. You know, we all have our very sincere condolences to you and wish you well.
I know.
And I hope, I'm sure you've got
so much. And the foundation sent a beautiful wreath to the funeral services. And we've been so blessed because so many people have come. And the first day, the Majesty's King and Queen came, as well as the Prime Minister, the Privy Council. And we're just so blessed with all the kindness that we've been receiving. And yes, to answer Kevin's question about its conditions, all arises by conditions, because there's nobody around to make it arise. With greater understanding of anatta, what that really means, deep down in its depth, in its greatest depth, what anicca means in its greatest depth, what dukkha means in its greatest depth, is so utterly important and so utterly mind-boggling, and yet comforting when it's understood. And so in any case, I think anything comes, everything's by conditions. I cannot say, today I'm going to think of anatta, or today I'm going to think of anicca. It comes when it comes, when the time comes. And when enough understanding is attained, when there's levels of understanding that are attained, the attachments grow less, the hindrances grow less. It's a very slow process that takes who knows how many lifetimes, but still it's a wonderful process or path, as the metaphor always is used, to be on. But then there's no one to be on a path. There is just the conditions being there, created, being germinated, that will bring about more understanding or more akusala, or more depends.
It's
But
good
the
to hear
more-
your confidence at this time, Betty, and to know that you're listening to the Dhammas. And we just have a few moments for Jan to give last words.
Yes, please. Yes, that would be far better.
Yeah. So now, what is akusala? Just one word. Is it there now? And can it be known until it can be directly realized, the truth of it? It's so very subtle. If we forget about the subtlety of our Dhammas, we cannot get through to the Dhamma right now as it is. So I appreciate your understanding of Dhamma, everyone. Begin to be subtle, understanding carefully about the truth. It's not just a word, it's there. Even akusala, we use the term akusala. What is it from the very beginning to know that it's not I or anyone? It is akusala. Akusala is akusala. And it's there now too. Who knows when there's no understanding of its truth as what is it now? And this is the way to realize the truth, not to learn the word, but to understand each word, whether it's now or not. For example, akusala, what is it? See, beginning from the what it's a reality for sure, because it's there when it arises. That's why I learn to understand each word, to understand its characteristic right now. For example, there's sin, there is ignorance, there is attachment right now, unknown. And if we just talk about the story of it, how can there be a moment of attending to the characteristic which is now, which like are attached to it now? And every reality in life can be known little by little until it is the real understanding of its truth, little by little, to directly experience the truth directly. No doubt of Dhamma by then. So anytime we talk about Dhamma, there should be the understanding of it as not self. We're talking about akusala, and akusala is just a reality, and there are many kinds of akusala. So now, what kind of it? See, no understanding of seeing. Is it not akusala or is it kusala? Beginning to understand what is there in life before this. สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีค่ะอาจารย์